Hello, and welcome back to Revolutionary Business. If you see me looking between two sites, it's because I have two cameras on and it's just something that I'm testing. But I want to have a conversation with my fellow entrepreneurs, with my fellow creative and purpose driven entrepreneurs, those of y'all who has been in the game for a couple of years and you have gone through the peaks, you've gone through the trail, you have gone through the ebbs, the flow, and you are at a crossing point of having some big questions, and as you should, especially if you are a millennial, which means you have been online for quite a while, right? We are the last generation that has gone through analog and these crazy things we call internet. And I feel like the core of today's message that I really want to come through ultimately is, if you are a purpose driven entrepreneur, if your business is surrounding around you really just evolving, growing, and making what you've learned and teach what you've learned through your business, um, what I've found true for myself over and over the years and through different seasons, through success, through failures, is that the number one thing that really matters the most is how radically honest you can be with yourself. So I personally think honesty goes beyond authenticity. And in fact, I feel authenticity is almost like a performance. It's almost like there's this performance thing that we have with authenticity, with vulnerability. I touch on it a little bit in the Authentic Authority episode that, you're welcome to go and check it out. Highly recommend that. But I feel that for leaders like that, and if you are watching my video, if you're part of the community, you're part of the revolutionary business community, that's who you are, right? The value system that you have, wealth is important. Wealth, community, family, impact are important. But what sits above all these values are the intrinsic values that drive what you do. And personally, for me, they are identity. And for me, identity is all around who God has created us to be. And this has been something that is very anchored in me way before I have even, chose to follow Jesus as a way of life. It has always been who God has made you to be. That part of you that just knows, that part of you, that the inner knowing that bypasses your logic, that bypasses any emotion. That is my first value, the identity of who God has created you to be, because that's where your truest potential lies. So after identity, I have values that are creation, wonder, intimacy, and there is one more that I cannot remember. But what I come to realize, for me, needing to create is part of, like, creating is breathing to me, whether it's a curriculum, whether it's a video, whether it's some sort of writing. Creating has become my breath of life, and that is God's original design, right? And I think that where we are right now in humanity, we have more platforms, tools that allow us to create, but what we have become is we are consuming more than we are creating. And now I'm not going to be like, hey, let's move to the jungle, been there, done that. But I think it is more important than ever that you, as a creative entrepreneur, as a leader, to protect your creativity at all cost. And for you to truly grow a business that thrives, you need to be creating more than you're consuming. And nobody can do that for you until you be radically honest with yourself, which is really what we talk about today. Right? So creation, like, for me, when I am living fully, when I'm creating what, whether it's for business or whether it's on my day to day. And one thing that I've noticed since I moved back to Australia is that cooking is a form of creativity. Like, I turn raw materials into something of sorts. Like, I need to create, otherwise, like, it doesn't matter of anything, like what everything else is happening. And I've tested this across different phases of my business. And I think that what has like why I'm so convicted on this is because I'm a former chartered accountant and I've worked in $1 million to $1 billion businesses. And when I started my agency, I worked with businesses from startup all the way to like 8-figure companies. So I am pretty great at strategy, and there is a time and space for strategy, for structure. We're not going to go the whole like, oh no, I'm just going to run a body based business. Also, have a podcast episode on that you should highly check out. So I have deployed, I have came out, I have led $1 million strategies for businesses. But when it comes to my business, I've got some great strategies going. But until the internal pieces are aligned, until I am honest with what I need, what I want, what I need to be the leader to lead you guys, like all of that is not going to be solid. And you know this to be true. Maybe you haven't given the language to that yet. It doesn't mean that wealth does not matter. In fact, the whole point of why you have this internal compass is because that is really the catalyst to feel of actually building life-changing wealth. And I feel like that is almost like the checkpoint that God has installed in me so that I would never ever blindly chase just money and just success. Because if that's only what I want, I probably would have been, making actually like I would be making pretty good money without the blood, sweat, and tears and the fire that I had to walk through of being an entrepreneur. And for women like us, that's just part of the game. That's what we sign up for. Like we actually secretly like to forge through the fire, right? That's what makes us who we are. Um, and so why that is important is because I've done this value like hierarchy thing a couple of days ago. I've gone through like massive identity recalibration, after a wild 7 years. And I think that at where I am in growing my business, like this values hierarchy is very important because I'm building something to last and I'm not like a startup anymore. And there needs to be more structure, infrastructure in places. And my values have changed, throughout the years from when I first, when I quit and pivot my career at 30, walking away from everything, from a place of I just want to escape from everything. Like I just cannot do these anymore. And freedom at that time meant very different things to freedom now. Right. So a lot of things have changed. I have matured. I've gone through heartache, the darkest time of my life, gave my life to Jesus, did the thing online and all of that. And having great gigs and having people, strangers come up to you and tell you that your work have changed your life, all of these things. I've done a lot for, in the last 7 years. And it comes a point now where I never, well, also my fault for not actually taking the time to integrate, to actually check in to see what really no longer stands. And I think that's something that's really important as visionaries, as someone who just like growth is just a part of who we are. And, we live for unlocking our fullest potential and see who do we get to become in the pursuit of who God has made us to be. And that has always been something that's in me, right? Like I have two fears that really live in me viscerally. Number one is the fear of not being loved. Praise Jesus, that fear has been really healed. Because before it was healed, it was impairing a lot of the decisions that I've had. But secondly, is the fear of not living up to my fullest potential. Imagine going up to heaven as one day and you go like, well, this was the plan for you, but because you were too, I don't know, scared or you're too like careful about it, that was the plan for you, but you only opted for the entree when the best is yet to come. Like, I do not want that, right? Um, and so with women like us, sometimes what we end up doing is we keep going, we keep building, and to a certain extent, we're chasing for something that it almost feels like a never ending pit that you never feel quite, like, you never feel like you're quite, like, you never feel like you ever landed or you have arrived somewhere. And the last 18 months of like intentionally slowing down and like put my business on a pause, and I'm aware that it's also a very privileged position to be in, um to really rethink everything, because I know that if I keep continue building on whatever it is that I'm building, it doesn't matter how great it is, it's going to collapse. It is going to like fall on me eventually, because I know I'm not the same woman as I was, I mean, even a month ago, but let alone the woman who started the business. And I feel that a lot of you are at this threshold where you have gone from, you have taken the risk, you have proven the concept, you have found the product and message market fit, you have show your brain, your nervous system, your mind that wow, I can make money outside of the system. But you have hit a block. Some of you have been a couple of years. It is just this invisible ceiling that you cannot cross. I can almost guarantee, I mean, I don't know the detail of your life, your business, your goals, your vision, um, that your next level growth requires you to first be radically honest with yourself. And I feel like sometimes we need to go through the fire multiple times. Like I knew this, like back in 2019, where I know that strategy, it always only going to work when it comes from an aligned identity. Identity precedes strategy. Always. For a creative founder like you and I. If you're in a tech company, if you're building for an exit, if you're getting a VC and all of that, this probably doesn't apply to you as much. Um, but if you are an entrepreneur that you want both purpose, profit, and future proof, like being honest with where you are, being honest with what you want is the ultimate strategy. And there is no way around it. And I think this is both a blessing and a curse sometimes. The blessing is because then you know that you are always walking in integrity, that it is not in question, because, like, you literally cannot move forward until you are really honest with yourself. And you know that. And it doesn't always means like honest, like with business sense of things, but more so your internal state. So when I look back at like the significant journey for me, business was the easy part. Like I was professionally trained. I went to business school. I great at numbers. Like I knew how to do the thing and I did the thing. But it comes a certain point where the leader who builds the business is what actually decides if the business is going to grow beyond and or it's going to just stay small. So you're very important. And I feel like the context around self is such a thing that I wrestle with, and I really had to like get very clear on my thinking on that, because there is a big part of the internet, and the internet has really rewarded a lot of bad behaviors. It has also bring out the part of us that needs to be seen, the self-exaltation part. I feel like none of us is actually immune to that. It's part of the game, it's part of the journey, it's part of the process, right? Some of us, which are the ones who are watching this, we move past it, we mature, and we became the leader that God has called us to be. So, in that journey, you got to realize self, like from a leadership point of view, self is really important, because you can only lead people to the place and to the trenches that you're willing to lead yourself. That really is what conscious leadership, before it becomes a buzzword, that is what transformational leadership is. And that really is the thing that I see is the antidote to what's happening in the world. And like really to be able to use AI in a very healthy way, and not allowing AI to cloud every part of your decision. I love Claude. I have finally gave in this week to sign up for Claude, and oh my god, it has been next level. Like, Claude is great, but also the entire of last year I rebuilt in private. I didn't go on this massive marketing campaign of I'm going on a sabbatical or I'm burning my things down. I just disappeared. Like, I went through a moment, and that was a moment where I needed to go through my sanctification because I was sharing testimony that was meant to be kept between Jesus and I. And because I have been online for 15 years, so it became a part of who I am that I really need to rewire, like, my brain of like, okay, like, where do we draw the line? How does this actually fit into the strategy? And that was what I meant by who I was when I started the business is not the same as the person that I am now and who I'm becoming and the kind of leaders that I want to be, and and the people that I'm here to lead. And that brings to even more important conversation, right? Like, as an where honesty is required, is that I know so many of us, if not all of us, come to this space because transformation is what you're here for. Growth is what you're here for. And the internet can be a lot sometimes. But something the Holy Spirit said to me last year is that you have chosen to make this your career, right? Like, I've made the choice. I've made the choice. And there also needs to be God's presence. And like, there needs to be great stuff. Like, people are going to be online regardless of how you feel about that. People are online, right? So I can decide if I want to bring good, if I want to bring the presence of God, if I want to bring leadership, if I want to bring value into the space, or if it's really too much for me, then I have to go make a different choice of a different career path. And for some of y'all, it might look like it that way. For some of us, it's just part of who we are, right? But there is this molding, remolding by God of like, how do we actually care? Like, how do we even move forward? Because as much as we don't want to talk about it, as much as we try to pretend it didn't happen, 2020 was a threshold that changed how the human behavior. There's like a permanent switch in our brain. And I think part of why I have a very different perspective, I mean, I always had, but I think even more so is because in 2020, I made one of the biggest decision, and that has given me a level of visceral certainty of how I can trust myself in the time of uncertainty. And now that I am fully yielded to Jesus, that I now have a counsel on when I make decisions. But that is an example of when I make decisions like that, that gave me the, I guess, the juice of being able to take bigger risk. And also in that time where most people are online swiping TikTok, all that thing, I was actually out in a jungle. I was actually doing a lot of deep healing work. So, like, the years after that, we're not going to go into too much detail on that, but the years after that, like, there were things that came out, like my nervous system was in survival mode, but because I've tapped into the space of what it feels like to have grounded nervous system, of what it feels like to live in harmony with nature, like, it changes the way I use AI, and like the questions that I've asked, like, it's just how I use it is very different from like 99.9% of the population. Um, so where I was going with this. So where I was going, yeah, okay, I know where. So last year, I was met at this point of like, what do I want to do? Like, am I going to keep complaining about what's going on? I feel like we fall into that. It doesn't matter how successful, how much of a leader you are. Sometimes you just fall into that because it's such an echo. That's why I say, like, your energetic hygiene is your responsibility, and if this is your path, if this is the career that you've chosen, like, that's a non-negotiable. Like, you have to decide how to draw boundaries around what you listen, what you take in, what you consume, what you create, and your creation has needs to always be more than your consumption. So I have to make the decision, and this is something I've learned, right? God would always show you what you need to know, and then there's the part of like, I see what you're doing here, God. But then when things starts to shift, when things start to change, is when I come into agreement with the will of God. When I come into agreement where I go, okay, God, that's what you show me. That's what I decide. And my action subsequently reflects the decision that I've made. Right. So for me, for example of that, it means that, okay, I've decided to do that, which means I get to stop completely of any form of complaining. And it comes in very subtle form. And also I had to clean up that in my work, in my voice, because like there's this like wrong making come across of like I'm just being polarizing, that seeps through my content just because of, I don't know how many of y'all do this, but let me know in the comments below, um, or send me a message on Instagram. Do you feel this? That because sometimes you're writing content, you're writing a post, you're meant to be writing to the people that you're here to serve, but you ended up writing like to rebuke a post or to argue a post that you saw at breakfast or when you're waiting for your like dry cleaning and you're swiping through. And then suddenly you're writing towards that versus the people that is waiting to hear for your message. The theme today is honesty, so there's no shade. It's like, okay, does it, like, part of the game is being humble and being able to be corrected. Like, that's just how it is, right? And this is what I love about honesty. This is what I love about honesty, and this is what I've learned the most when I went through my sexual awakening journey. There were a lot of bad decisions that came out of it, but one of the biggest things I've learned out of it, and it has given me this gift and strength, is my ability to be radically honest. And when you start like being radically honest, when you start seeing your fear, your mistake, your past, your failures with it, now I'm composed. But 3 months ago, I was probably on my floor crying a lot. So just saying, you can face it in a way, you can be take like, but you are willing to see it in front of you. Once you have that, that is true freedom. Honesty is true freedom. Not when I have to run away and get on a plane. That was a hard one. That was a hard one. But you know what? Praise God that now I do not need to jump on a plane to avoid conflict. It's a great thing. Point is, you got to be honest, right? You got to be honest with what is pissing you off. Sometimes it's great. Again, I want to expand on this nuance on here. Back when I was using human designs a lot and use that as a way to use that as a way like where I was using anger to fuel a lot of my creation. And I know that there's a lot of different train of thoughts of using anger, and I used to say that anger is a great source of power because yeah, it's a willpower. Like sometimes you need anger for you to make a different decision. um but I don't want to like glamorize that. I think it's important for us to be able to face our anger and lay it at the feet of Jesus if you believe in Jesus. But anger is not something that you're meant to carry for the rest of your life, or even having this weird relationship that thinking that you need your anger, you need your brokenness, you need whatever sad stories you need to create, because that's also a agreement that I had to break, that, oh, if I don't have those stories anymore, can I create? Like that's a massive lie that I had to also reprogram my mind from. So the point is, like, I had to stop. Like, it was great that I was frustrated. And I know many of you are probably in the same space. Like, we've all been burned, right? We've all been burned. Come on, it's part of the game. It's part of the game. Like, this is something that we need to remind ourselves that life is not just a bed and roses. We can optimize it, we can create it in the best possible way, but sometimes things happen so that our character can be forged. Okay? It's not because God has forgotten about you, it's not because, you've done something wrong, but simply it's just part of life. We just sometimes, like, we just need to remember We just gotta be aware that we don't have to carry the drama behind it. And as storyteller, as creative, part of the juice comes from drama. In the past, I've since renounced with that. For me, creation comes from leadership, comes from future, and comes from being fully tapped into the current of life. That's the truth that I rolled with. So when I make that decision last year, after the Holy Spirit has showed me that, it was a journey of like, I'm great with business, but I was going around this circle of like, I don't want to call myself business coach. I make myself greater than that. And I'm trying to add all these fluff of like, no, I help you grow your business, but we look at identity first, like marketing 101, right? And this is an example of why honesty is so important. Sometimes your message, like most of the time, if you find yourself at this threshold where because you're not testing your ideas anymore, your ideas work, and you have hit 3K, 5K, 10K months, but you feel like you can't expand anymore. You don't know what it is. A lot of the time is that you need to be honest with yourself of what it is that you're really called to do, and then all the gungs, all the things, all the stories, all the ick around it is going to start popping up. And maybe those icks are a clear example, like a clear direction of like, okay, maybe this is not your path. Or if you've decided that that's the path you've chosen, then you're going to decide who do you want to be. And for me, I figured out now, I got very clear that that is the whole point. The whole point is to be the leader who is actively participating in shaping the future of humanity. That's really what coaching, that's really what transformation, that's really what online business, like why we started our business in the first place. Yes, the freedom, the financial security, the life-changing wealth, the legacy business is great. But at the very core of that, it's because you want to be actively participating in shaping the future. You want to be in control. Well, God is in control, but you get to be in control of what you get to do in this earth moment. So once I've decided of that, I'm like, okay, it's so clear now. The people that I work with are those who are building the industry forward, right? Just like how I came from accounting. So like it's like the most, yeah, right? There are good, there are bad accountants. Just like everything, there's good and bad. And I think that there's anything about the spiritual and new age or love and light community, it's like when something it's not good, it's it's like you're not aligned. But then like we wouldn't go into the thing that we need to be really honest about. And so before you look at any strategy, your main thing is, can you be honest with yourself? Like, what are the things that you are building stories instead of facing it head on? Call upon Jesus if you don't know that that's an option, because I didn't know it was an option for years. And when I finally do, I'm like, God, where have you been? Well, Jesus had been around. I just wasn't receptive towards him. So, like, and now that I'm on the other side, and it just proven to be true and over again, is that honesty is the best strategy you need to deal with your business. Do you even want to build the business? For some, it's like, no, I don't want to build the business. And for some, for me, like I tried to fit into the mold of this soft girl lifestyle because it was the biggest wound insecurity that I have. Right. And there were different circumstance around love that really broke me where I thought I never recovered. But praise God again. And for me, the biggest part was I was just trying to fit into a different mold through a different packaging, right? Like I'm meant to build something. I cannot not build. That's why I said at the start, creation is my value. Like how big it goes, it doesn't matter, but I know it's going to go big because I cannot stop creating. Like it's what bring me alive. And in coming alive, I get to lead. I am a better leader. I'm a better entrepreneur. I'm a better future wife and a future mother. And so I have to be really honest with myself of like, I actually want to build a big company. And I also want to be very present for my kids. I also want to enjoy life and travel. And also, I like beautiful things. I don't need a lot of them. I live pretty simply, as you can see. But also, I like those things. I want to build a company. I want to build wealth. And then once I be honest with myself, the things that you need to face and the warfare, it comes after. But it doesn't mean that, oh, it's bad. It just shows you like these are your resistance, these are the shit that you have to deal with. And I like when you start being honest with yourself, first of all, 90% of the problem is not going to be a problem anymore because it's just an edge of how you need to show up next, right? It is just an edge. Now you start going, oh, it's not really a problem. It's just that I haven't done it before. Oh, I just need to do this because, oh, well, it's what's asking of me. And I think this is something that I've learned like I've became a little bit too flirty in my days in Bali, especially in my final few years. And then I was in this weird space of like, oh, I shouldn't have gone like, and that's how our human brain made. You just take this to a whole tangent of like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have done it. You should have just stayed small. You should have just stayed boring. You should have just like be what everyone else tells you to be. Be honest. Has it gone through your mind? Someone just gonna say it, right? And then what I realized when you start assuming responsibility, when you start going, okay, what am I responsible for here? Not your coach, not the bad coach, not the everything, because I think this is also a really important thing. Like it doesn't really happen to it. It doesn't have anything for me because I moved through that in 2018. Even I think I have a video on YouTube on that. And like, oh, so you made a bad decision, a coach. Are you going to let a bad coach decide your future? The underlying that is like I don't trust myself in making decision, and so we collapse, and then we go through all these different things, and like instead of making this decision, instead of making forward, and we think that oh we need more healing, we need more breath work, but what we need to be radically honest with ourselves. What works? What no longer works? What we really want? And don't have to explain to anyone else. Take it to God. God would correct you. God will let you know. Okay, yes, it's meant for you, but you need to take it slowly. Like you don't go from 0 to 1,000. Or God would be like, okay, no, it's yours. And now I've already given you the green light. Now are you willing to become the person who can have that? Are you willing to be transformed? So let me know what has came through for you guys, especially around honesty. What do you need to be honest about? And if you want to share that, if you have a breakthrough of like, oh my God, I wasn't willing to admit to myself up until this moment. I wasn't willing to admit to myself that I don't want to do this anymore. Oh, I wasn't ready to admit to myself that I barely scratched the surface of what I can do. I had just been tiptoeing trying to be safe. What is it? If you want to share that, you can DM me on Instagram. It's I am Adeline And if you're ready to rebuild your business, to become the leader that you are here to be, who know exactly who she is, standing on your authentic authority, not from your mentor, not from me, not from the course you do, but from the proven track record, from your lived experience and embodied expertise. And you know exactly who you are, who you serve, what only you can do, what only you can do as you build a body of work that you're proud of, a business that compounds over time, leading clients who challenge you in a good way, and making more money than you previously allow yourself to truly want in a way that your business gets to work for you. I have a mastermind coming up later this month. If that is you, send me a message becoming on Instagram. If not, you can just stay tuned for the information. And for those of y'all who want an intensive session of like getting clear on, okay, what is not working in my life right now? I really can't see it. I just need to have a breakthrough. I just need someone to show me like what the blind spot is. What am I not seeing? Because when you are so deep in it, sometimes you just can't see. You need a different vantage point, you need a different perspective. And if that's you, I have 5 spots of 60 minutes intensive at $500 off for the month of April. I'm going to put them down in the link here below on Substack. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it's going to be in the comment section. And if you're watching this, no, listening this on podcast, it's going to be in the show notes. Yeah, that's all for today. And I cannot wait to see you in the next episode.